now.
I love watching the streams, by the way.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Sometimes I only watch like 20 minutes, I have to admit. But I'll dip in and then I'll fast forward to a
I see.
part. And sometimes
Okay.
I watch the whole thing. But they're
Sometimes
so good.
you do. Well,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
I
You
love
can hear me
watching.
talking to Jesse about his feral children.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, virtual audience. And thank you all for coming to the store tonight. We have twin British mysteries tonight, but they're quite different. We have a Gothic book from Jess Armstrong set in Oxford at the end, after World War I. It's kind of, do we have an actual year or are we just a little hazy?
1922.
Okay, so are you?
Am I on? My green light is on. Am I
Okay,
on?
so just hold it up. Right.
I'll
there
hold it
you
closer.
go.
It's 1922.
Thank you very much. All right. And Charlie, we've been moving along, although we took a 3-book detour back in time. I love the fact that Charlie wrote not one prequel, but a prequel trilogy to the Charles Lennox series, which I think is just brilliant. So where are we in terms of Victorian England?
1881.
Oh.
So getting a little later,
Yeah, but it's still Victorian.
but still mid-Victorian,
Yeah,
kind of the
we're
prime.
not Edwardian or sinking
Right,
up there yet.
exactly.
Right.
Not
So-
quite Gothic yet.
Yeah. So we have Ruby over here, Ruby Vaughn. And here we have Charles Lennox. I love it. Is Charles Finch writing Charles Lennox? I can always remember the name of his character because I know his name. And Tasha, who will be with us tomorrow night, is in 1907. So we're getting sort of a spectrum. And we're seeing some social issues that are really important coming into your book, certainly with Charles's wife, Lady Jane, who has decided to women's suffrage
Yes.
in a big way.
That's right. That's right.
And Ruby is an American heiress. So, Jess, I haven't talked to you as much as I've talked to Charles. So why don't we fill in, who's Ruby? Why is she there? What's going on with her?
So Ruby Vaughn is a disgraced American heiress who was sent away from New York when she was 16 years old after a scandal. And she was supposed to go away to let the scandal die down, but then the First World War broke out, and so she was on the other side of the ocean. And her parents, her entire family is killed in the Lusitania, and so she is making a life for herself after the First World War, working for a octogenarian bookseller who is dealing in rare, unusual, occasionally illegal books that have gotten Ruby arrested a time or two. And she ends up falling into lady sleuthing.
Why is it that booksellers in books are always eccentric or unusual or
Why is that,
sometimes
Barbara?
criminal? Sometimes they're actually criminal. I know.
I don't know. I think it's because books are so fascinating. Like, I don't know.
Well, sometimes I think in historical books it's because books are kind of a portal to knowledge. And also booksellers clearly are reading, at least some books. And so, they have a skill set or a background that maybe, a lot of people yet don't have. And also there's a big pull on manuscripts. Julie Macmillan has written a book about the Voynich manuscript. She's safe because no one has translated the Voynich manuscript. Nobody actually knows what it said. There's no Rosetta Stone for it. So she's able to...
Is that the one with all the beautiful drawings?
Yes,
and
it is, right. I've
Are there
looked at it.
theories about what it is?
Many theories, and she's got one.
She's got one of them?
in the book. But my point is, she's safe, because nobody's going to blow her out of the water until.
That's a really good plan.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
right.
that's right.
I know. I thought that too. Anyway, so Ruby has said. I mean, would you say that Gothic is a fair description of the kind of books you write?
I think that is fair. There's always something else going on in the story. It's not a straightforward mystery. There's always like a deeper mystery that goes back a little further in time, almost always some period of time, some larger than others depending on the book, which really kind of leans Gothic in like the storytelling arc. But yeah, I think she is very much... The books are more Gothic than she is. Like, I always imagine her as your traditional lady sleuth heroine, but she's dropped into Gothic books.
Well, yeah, the eccentric bookseller that we've already mentioned, and one of them is in Cornwall. So we're in Daphne du Maurier territory, and wherever we go to Cornwall, I think books tend to slew Gothic, because it's just that kind of place. But a real Gothic requires, like a mansion or a house or something. This time you're using Oxford University as kind of that background.
Yes, and it was actually very difficult to.
I'm sorry, we have to get somebody.
Why do
to-
people think booksellers are
Well-
sinister? Who do you have back there, Barbara?
Here's a really weird thing. We're living in a place that air conditioning is required for everybody, right? No one so far of all the companies we've talked to is willing to come in and redo the ductwork. They want to sell us a new compressor, but none of them want to come in and fix the duct, which clearly has come loose from its mooring, and you're just be ready because it does that whenever it goes off. It goes clunk because
It's so Gothic.
It is.
Gothic.
I was going to blame the ghost.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I just find it really interesting that no one, when I grew up, because I'm older than both of you, everybody's dream that I knew was to go to college and get like a liberal arts education and then do whatever. But, it was like the ticket to the rest of your life. Today, I would recommend to people they actually learn a trade. I mean, electricians, plumbers, people who do ductwork, whatever. It's a solid way of and well-paid way.
And no AI is going to come do it for you.
Robots may eventually. Maybe we will have.
I'll be long dead.
Maybe we can get the thieves at the Louvre to come along and bring their crane, and then we could get a robot, and the crane can lift the robot up, and the robot will tear out the ceiling and fix
Now
it.
you're thinking.
I love it. There was a thing, we're really digressing here, but there was an article in the Times yesterday about robots are now being used for street cleaning and some gardening and firefighting assistance. And we're going to see, I think, considerably more.
I want one to do laundry. That's all. get me.
Your
That's
own
the robot I want.
laundress.
Yeah.
Laundry and dishes.
Dishes too. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they might break the dishes, but laundry. Anyway, but robots are not even thought of when you two are writing, so let's not go there. Oxford University, Mick Herron of Slow Horses fame, I looked it up because I bought a whole bunch of, I'm very good at first novels. That is his first book, and I bought a ton of them, signed from the UK in, I think it was 2002. And it's called Down Cemetery Road, and it has nothing to do with, well, it sort of does, but in a different way than Slow Horses and the spy thing. Well, Rick is one of those authors that just wrote quietly a whole lot of books, and then by some fluke one day, Slow Horses got sold to television, and, what's his name? Gary Oldman. Yeah. And so now these earlier books that were so good are appearing on TV. And what's her name? Emma Thompson bought it as a vehicle. She's fabulous in it. But the reason I bring it up is that it is set at Oxford, Cemetery Road, and drones are a big part now of TV photography. So I spent a summer at Oxford, and I'm really loving the fact that the show is like a visit to the university, and from a height that neither you nor I has probably ever experienced.
No, and it's so beautiful. Like Oxford is one of those places, if you've never been, that will just capture your imagination, and you can feel the past when you're walking down the streets and all the people that have walked there before you, and it's just magical. But it is not Gothic. I mean, it could be, I guess, Gothic, but it was a struggle to not go away from kind of the Gothic roots, because the first two stories are country house murder mysteries. They're squarely, you're in this creepy old place. There's ruins, there's mist, there's fog. There's also a man named Ruan, so that's very confusing to say out loud. But it was difficult to try and capture that. But the more I thought about it, like one of the things about Gothic novels is the kind of claustrophobia, is the kind of the descent into madness and the questions of your own sanity and the sanity of those around you, of ghosts, so that's not, that can happen anywhere. That can happen in an urban setting. That can happen in any place. And so it was really kind of pulling back on what it is to be Gothic and making sure that I had those elements in this book, which is set at Christmas too. So it's set at Christmas time in Oxford. So it is not like, my brain is like, Christmas in Oxford, that's not Gothic. But it took a little bit of work to get there.
Gothic also, there's usually at least one really eccentric character in it, and Oxford has quite a lot of them. My tutor, Mr. Pitt, lived in the Abbott's 12th century quarters at Worcester College, and because it was a tied residence, and many people in England, as part of, if they're a vicar or an Oxford professor, whatever, their accommodation goes with the job, and so when they lose it, they lose it. And he was retiring, I don't think voluntarily, but I think, he'd aged out, and he had to pack up his beautiful library and everything, and it was really heartbreaking to watch it, because aging in place was not a possibility for him. But the 12th century Abbot quarters is pretty Gothic, is my point.
Oh, yeah.
So there are lots of places in Oxford like that, but that wasn't really what you were aiming for.
No, I wasn't. I actually wanted to do something different with this book because I had done 2 country house murders, and it felt like we needed to do something different. And also because I had, in the first 2 books, referenced Howard Carter and the quest to see what was in the Valley of the Kings. And as the time progressed, by December of 1922, Howard Carter had found King Tut's tomb and discovered this previously unknown tomb in the Valley of the Kings. And so that set off this craze throughout society. Everybody was clamoring for anything Egyptian. And so it kind of lent itself, it was the time to set this book here at this time. So what
I think is interesting too is there was a mad Egyptian craze about 100 years previously in the Regency. Remember, there was, everybody wanted to have Egyptian furniture and all this other stuff.
Because I think, wasn't that tied to Napoleon being in
it
Egypt?
Was Napoleon going to Egypt, and
thinking.
then so everybody wanted to do sort of a piece of that. But the Great Egyptian Museum just opened, and they are refinishing the tomb of the father of, not Tut, but his own father, whose name is going to come to me in a minute because I'm old and I keep forgetting stuff like that.
That makes your ductwork seem like a very short project.
Totally. Right. So, there was an Egyptian craze. And also, Lord Carnarvon had died. And so there was that, he got an infected mosquito bite when he went to visit the tomb or he was there when Howard Carter opened the tomb, and then he died. And so then there was all this superstition and the curse of King Tut and all of that was going on too, right? So that's Gothic.
It is squarely Gothic. And then I realized that I couldn't do anything about a curse in the 3rd book because the first book is called The Curse of Penrith Hall. And I'm like, no curses. So I had to get creative. Curses, that's right.
I think you could still keep doing curses.
I'm like,
You think you get one? That's it.
well, I have to give it some time.
It's just a traveling curse,
She is cursed.
Right, love it. All right, well, let's go. Let's move back to Victorian England before between the Egyptology crazes and all, and so Charles Lennox is getting older. And
we all are.
I know, but I mean, so when we met him, he had a number of ambitions, and he was single.
Yes,
wishing for Lady Jane.
That's
Eventually
right.
That all worked out. But now he's older. He's more reflective, and his brother is on a course to become somebody pretty important.
Yes, it's like one of the joys of writing a series. You're 4 books in. 3 books in. I mean, so this is the 15th book, and one of the joys is changing. Well, I don't know. I mean, do you prefer it when there's no change? Poirot's the same every book, right? I guess in Curtain, was he different? I can't remember. He's a little bit different. He gets a little bit older. But one of the joys of writing a series is changing with the characters, and as especially my protagonist, Lennox, changes, I change, and vice versa. So he has kids and I have kids, and he's getting a little older, and his brother is going to become possibly Chancellor of the Exchequer after pushing away all ambition and responsibility for most of his life.
Yeah, but the older brother he's the heir, right?
That's right.
Lennox is a younger brother, so
Yes.
he has lots of the perks of being in the aristocracy without the weight of the responsibility.
That's right. I always remember in which one was it? I guess it's in The Horse and His Boy, the C.S. Lewis book from Narnia, where the rightful king comes back and the heir is so happy. He's like, oh, I get to be a younger son. I get to just like go hunting and have balls and like all this stuff. And I always thought there's real charm to being the younger son without responsibility, without, and there's also some sense of doubt and trepidation, I think, in Charles's life, because in this series of books, he's an amateur detective at a time when, to be a doctor was considered lower class because you used your hands in the work. So he's doing something fairly radical, even though it seems sort of normal to us.
Very true. Doctors had a bad rap. Surgeons
I know,
had
yeah.
a barber pole, remember?
That's right,
Yeah,
that's right.
Surgeons were very poorly thought of. But anyway, so Lady Jane, though, although she's not as active in this investigation, if I remember it, she's out there agitating.
Yes. Well, so Lennox's wife, Lady Jane, has always been sort of a member of society. And, you said he's getting older. I think, I'm 45, as I mentioned, and I think there is a time in your 40s where you just kind of want to turn yourself inside out and be like, who am I? What was all that? You're kind of like, here I am, maybe in the middle or getting past the middle. And I think I maybe projected that onto her because she moves from being sort of just this high society doyenne to getting involved in the first stages of the suffrage movement. And it was really a pleasure to research. I'm sure you know all about it because your encyclopedic knowledge of history, but to research for the first time the origins of the suffrage movement, which were American. I mean, it was the Seneca Falls Convention, and
Manfredo wrote a really great book called Seneca Falls. I don't know, they've been out of print for a long, long time, but if you could find her earlier books.
Is it a mystery or?
Yeah, it was a terrific mystery series, and I'm blanking on the name of the woman who was the protagonist, but she set the first one at Seneca Falls for the convention.
Yeah, so I mean, that would have been 1848. This was 1881, and I think the people who were interested in suffrage thought that it was imminent, and in fact, it would take another 30 years. But the Isle of Man, which was self-governing, passed the women's right to vote in this year, and so there was this sense that it was really close to happening. And I hadn't realized that. I associate it with maybe slightly later Victorian England, and so it was really fun to write that history. I think another part of writing a long series is you have to find new little corners of the history of the time to care about, and that's one of the ways you stay excited about it.
Yeah, but you've always been really good at that. I mean,
Thank
you've taken us into some interesting parts of, life that we might not. I'm trying to remember some of the. Do I remember watches for some reason? Horses? Okay.
Watches, horses.
I don't know, but no, it was
anything
coins.
you need.
It was coins.
Coins, yeah.
Definitely coins.
For sure, and societies and every sort of little detail of. I mean, one of the most fun things in this one was, I read that right around this time it became a huge fad to go to the gym. That was like that had just been imported from Sweden in around 1879. And so they had these gymnastics halls, and all the aristocratic men would go and they would fence, and they have these huge machines that look like weight machines full of pulleys and weights that look absurd to us, but at the time were the most new, amazing thing in the world.
They weren't Peloton?
No, they were Peloton of the 1880s. And they would have, vats of cucumber water that they claimed would cure typhus. I mean, they all sorts of absurd. But that was a little, I just keep finding these little tiny corners of this. Because London it was the center of the world, It was the center of this empire, and it was an endlessly proliferating, complicated place.
Well, it really was. It was also the financial engine.
That's exactly right. Yep.
So lots going on.
Yeah.
Right. So what is the story in this one? We've ranged all around it.
Right.
What actually happens?
The story is, it follows on from the last book in which Lennox was badly wounded, and so he's recovering, and he doesn't want to do his detective work, but an old housekeeper who has a real call on his allegiance comes and says, I'm living in this house where there was an unsolved murder 7 or 8 years ago. And it was an apothecary who is kind of a crooked apothecary, which was a common type back then. You were talking about like the Sawbones doctor, and the apothecaries were in league with the opium dens, and they were sometimes, I mean, there were honest ones, but they were the first port of call if you were sick, because most people couldn't afford a doctor, couldn't afford a surgeon. And so they were these hubs of society. And so this is a kind of crooked backroom dealing apothecary who died 7 years ago. So he has to sort of delve into that world. And to his surprise, it takes him not into low society, but into high society.
Well, you know, drugs were not illegal then.
That's right. That's right.
You know, David Morrell was just here, and you know, he wrote a wonderful book about, you know, the opium eater. What's his name? Thomas.
Thomas de Quincey.
Yeah, Thomas de Quincey, and you know, women used to, you know, rub the gums of teething children with opium stuff, or even worse, pass them over the gas flame to gas.
That's right.
them,
Well, as I say in the book,
no kidding. This, yeah.
There was the most popular medicine of the time, as I say in the book, is Mother's Helper, which was opium, cannabis, and cocaine. Which
the reason Coca-Cola is called Coca-Cola.
That's right.
Know?
That's right.
Really
Yeah.
I mean, so gin was for the poor. You know,
That's it.
The opiate of the really poor was gin, which was brought in from Holland. But if you were richer and you could afford,
You could get real opium. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right. That's right.
But also, you know, there weren't any analgesics. I mean, people were in pain. It's a climate conducive to rheumatism and arthritis and all kinds of things. And it wasn't like you could take aspirin. That was what, 1922?
Well, we're back to not being able to take aspirin or Tylenol. What's I'm sorry.
Let's not go there, please.
sorry.
Right, we're going to stay apolitical. That's our goal. But nonetheless, I can understand why. And lots of women who had multiple children and, you know, all kinds of, you know, gynecological issues, the whole bit.
Of course.
There wasn't much. And if you didn't want to be drunk, then opium was a better bet for society women than swilling down gin.
And even if you didn't want to be drunk, most people would drink, in the early part of the Victorian era, small beer, like 2% alcohol beer, because it was safer than water. So you had no choice about whether you were allowed to be drunk. But yes, if you didn't want to be badly drunk on gin, then you would go get something from the apothecary, which often was an opiate. That's right.
So in your research, what are they doing in 1922 Oxford in regard to drugs and alcohol?
They're doing everything. I mean, people were doing all sorts of stuff. And I think cocaine was not, it had just started being more regulated by the time that, like in the 20s. Because that's around the same time that they're taking it out of Coca-Cola. But yeah, I mean, they've moved away from opium. They've moved to cocaine, heroin, like kind of our more modern drugs. And it's about this time that really people are starting to be like, maybe we shouldn't be doing these things and regulating it a little bit more. But you can still get it from the pharmacy. You go to your pharmacist and get drugs of all sorts, even still then.
We're so judgmental about that, and I think in 100 years they're going to be like, and you could just get a Valium from your doctor, and we're going to be like, oh, well.
But then we'll be
Like
dead.
Star Trek, where they just wave something over you and you're all magically repaired.
That's what I want. Yeah.
I know.
That would be
All right.
amazing.
So there's a dead apothecary, and
Yes.
Lennox, hewing back to the story.
Thank you.
And Lennox, because he's fond of the housekeeper,
Yes.
decides that he will, or is sucked into helping figure it out.
Yes. And I think, like many people, discovers that work is the best therapeutic method for recovering from an injury or a sickness. You know, that sitting around your house is worse for you than working. And so he gradually gets better.
That's good. Does he also solve the crime?
No. Yes, he does. That'd be a dirty trick to play on the reader.
No, it would. I know. Okay. But so I thought it was interesting in this book, the interplay, because these have been reasonably traditional mysteries in terms of the structure, you know, detective story, whatever. The interplay of these social issues, which are now coming back to us, you know, about women, you know.
I know.
where the roles we're seeing, that different definitions of roles of women are suddenly proliferating again, all of which I object to. And, you know, I found it intriguing that your book has a sort of modern echo.
I wondered if that was because I think like a lot of times when there's a reflection of current politics in a book, it happens behind my back. And this time I wondered if maybe I was driven to write about that because of the retreat from women's rights that we're experiencing. Or, I think there are these young women who decide they want to be trad wives, traditional wives, and I don't blame them. I mean, it's like, in a way, it's like this is a very difficult, complicated society to be a part of, and it's kind of like a dream to just be like, I'm gonna retreat, but you're sacrificing too much in terms of autonomy and freedom, as I view it, at least. And so it's kind of important to remember that these rights are not eternal, that they didn't exist 150 years ago. I mean, there were these two women at the University of Edinburgh who were the first ever women to become doctors in Britain, and they were met with thousands of people who threw vegetables and fruit at them, and they were hauled before the court, and they had to pay for the damages to the city because they were being protested, and they were just trying to go to school. And so it's easy to forget how recent these rights are, and I think how fragile. And now I'll get off my soapbox, but that is how I feel.
Well, I think it comes through in the book. It doesn't dominate the book, but I think it flows in the background. And, and as you say, society is moving into late Victorian times when things are different than when Lennox was young.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you should adjust to that.
Yeah.
Right. So, Ruby, traditionally American heiresses came to England in order to marry well and bring their money and gain a title like Consuelo Vanderbilt or whatever. But Ruby is not that kind of American heiress, is she?
She is not. I think initially that was the plan of her father, and had he not, died, that probably would have happened. But she very much does not want to fall into the gender roles of the time. She has the money, so she doesn't have to play by the rules because she doesn't have to. She doesn't have to conform to anything. And so she lives her life how she wants to. And it does come back to bite her sometimes because she pushes a little too hard. And even no matter how much money she has, it's our ghost.
It's the ghost.
See, I
for it when the air conditioning goes off. It's like
I find it kind of comforting.
I like it. It's the gothic.
Yes.
It feels special.
Yes.
But yeah, no, Ruby very much kind of bucks against tradition, but to a certain level. Like, there's always a moment where she realizes she's pushed a little too far, because you could only push so far sometimes before it comes back. And so she's kind of testing herself. But as she gets a little further in the series, I think she kind of finds her way.
Well, I mean, you're right. The fact that she has money and she's not married. I mean, for a long time, the only women who really had any autonomy were widows,
That's right.
Yeah, because they would have some kind of independent income. They didn't require chaperones, the whole bit. So, and there were a lot of them because so many of the rich married very young, and so there were an awful lot of widows that just because of the age difference. But Ruby is kind of in that, widow realm in the sense that she's not a mom, she's not a wife, she's not even a daughter, and she has money. So
right, and she's already so scandalous. Nobody's she's already ruined. She is a ruined woman by the time she arrives in Britain. And so
why is she a ruined woman?
So when she was 16 years old, she was seduced by a much older man who was running to be an alderman in New York. He was a protege of her father's, and he convinces her that he's going to marry her, except he's already got a wife. And then she gets caught with him in a compromising position, and immediately her parents send her away because the scandal is just way too much for them. And so they send her away to protect her, or so she thinks. And it may or may not have been. Nobody knows, since they are not around to tell. And Ruby questions that, whether or not she was sent away for herself or for them. But she's got a lot of baggage. She has a lot of baggage.
Okay, so if they died on the Lusitania, that was 1915.
Mm-hmm.
So it's now 1922. So she's been on her own for 7 years.
Yes, and she was in the war, and she was an ambulance driver during the First World War.
Right.
And then after the war, she was in a kind of toxic relationship with her best friend, and they didn't speak for a very long time. And so after the war was over, she was very much in a bad place, as one would be after 4 years of the First World War. I would be in a terrible place. So she goes back to Britain, kind of drinks herself into oblivion. She parties. She does all of the things that the bright young things do. She blows for her money, and she ends up renting a room from this man in Cornwall. She answers a newspaper advertisement, rents a room from him, ends up working for him in the bookshop, and that's how she ends up where she is 4-ish years later.
Okay, and so he's the one that takes her to Oxford because he has some
Yes.
agenda of his own in mind.
Mr. Owen is her employer, and he always has an agenda. He gets her into so much trouble. He really does. But he means well. So Mr. Owen is an antiquarian with a very complicated past, and he is going to his annual Antiquarian Society meeting in Oxford. And at this time, Ruby has solved 2 different murders in about 4 months, and she's tired. She needs a break. She's had a lot of adventure. She also has maybe not fallen in love with somebody and doesn't know what to do with it. And so she's looking for a vacation, and she ends up with another dead body.
Right. That's the great thing about mysteries is,
Yeah.
although, if you really think about it, classic mysteries did not always have murders. You could have like
That's very true.
robbery. I mean, if you read Dorothy Sayers, especially her short stories.
That's who I thought of too.
Yeah,
Yep.
there are all kinds. Or if you go back to Trollope, the diamond necklace or the Eustace diamonds.
Eustace Diamonds.
The Eustace diamonds, right. So you can have,
Or the Moonstone.
robberies or heists or, imprisonment, false, kidnapping. There are all kinds of things. We've just kind of settled into murder, but it really doesn't have to be.
I've thought about doing a non-murder, and I think my editor said you got to do it. You kind
The
of
body has to drop at
yeah,
some point.
you gotta. I think it's the victory of the golden age because they did gradually get more and more violent.
Right. Okay. Well, any of you have questions that you would like to ask the authors? Yes.
A question, Charles.
Yes.
In the earlier books, Charles Lennox, he is constantly getting messages in mail throughout the day, and I'm wondering if they actually had a system in place that would deliver mail multiple times a day, a way to pass a message out.
Yeah, it's such a good question, and I think the reason I put it in all those books is because I was so fascinated exactly by that, which is, Barbara just mentioned Trollope, who worked his entire life. He'd get up and he would write 2,000 words before breakfast, and then he would go to his job at the post office all day, and he invented the post office or the postage stamp, I think, because mail was such an important part of Victorians' lives, and the mail came 6 times a day. Which was really exciting. So if you wrote a letter in the morning in London, you could almost be sure that someone would get it by the afternoon or
They
the
were
evening.
always writing invitations
Yeah.
and notes, and and people would. It was almost like texting.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And slowly, as the series has progressed, I've incorporated more and more of the telegram because that became more prevalent. But it was very expensive. And even writing a letter, people would write like the normal letter, and then they would write crosswise to save the postage of having to write 2 sheets or something like that. So it's a whole world of fascinating kind of the postage pillar box was invented around this time. It's a whole little ecosystem that you're right. It was like email. It was like you could just write to your friend and hear back that afternoon.
I love those little red postal boxes.
I do too.
I know. In fact, where were we? Somewhere in Japan, and there was a broad avenue, and there was a little red postage box right over there. It was so British. And 2 phone booths we discovered in various places. So I know, since I love the British, I still have my little red phone booth. You can see it. down
Oh my
there.
gosh, yeah.
Yeah, it's been there all this time.
That's so
You
funny.
know, so you could really rely on
yeah.
on the post box and
Completely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Remember Sherlock Holmes? I mean, he did a lot of that.
Absolutely, yeah. And the same with, I mean, newspapers came out 3 or 4 times a day too. So you could have the latest news if you would get the evening edition or it was just a different time.
Even when I was a kid in Chicago, there was a morning paper and an evening paper.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, we got the Tribune in the morning and the Chicago Daily News at night. And my father, you know, commuted, so he would take the morning paper on the train and then buy the evening paper and come home. And then we all watched the same TV, so we all got the same news. We were much more of a community in terms of news. Everybody watched like Walter Cronkite or whatever it was.
Well, and I do think we feel the lack of that, of everyone reading the same newspaper. You know, we feel the splintering of
cohesive.
completely.
When
Yeah,
we didn't have all these fraction sources.
that's right. Yeah.
So
And-
what was going on in Oxford? Do you know, in terms of mail and all the rest by 1922, was it still kind of the same?
You know, I didn't look into the mail in Oxford because I don't think anybody's writing letters in the book. I mean, they're writing letters, but they're not writing them to each other.
Well, it's a small city. You can just like step across the way, maybe. Is that the
It is small. But we're at a time that like the telephone's coming in and we have telegrams and telegraphs. And so, which is also very difficult to figure out the logistics of with changing technology on like when exactly the telegram line, like what technology is available at a time, because you have urban areas that have like electricity and then some places don't have running water and within a few miles of each other. So I feel like that's like a huge challenge in writing in outside of a city. Like
Yeah. Well, in America, the rural electrification was in the 1930s under FDR. So, you know, rural America didn't have electricity until just before the Second World War. Sorry, I see a hand back there.
I was born in Oxford.
Oh, wow.
I've been here for 39 years, but I was born in Oxford in a small village. So the house that I was born in 63. So at 3 years old, we didn't have running water or electricity
Wow.
in our house. I remember them putting the bathtub in our house. And we had an outhouse, which we kept because it was convenient because we only had one bathroom. So
Right.
we had the outhouse basically, but we had the little red post box across the road from my mum's house. So I remember going over. My mum said, "Could you take this letter?" We used to stick it in the box, some of those big pill boxes.
What was the name of the town? I went to graduate school at Oxford for 4 years.
Old Marston.
Oh, of course I know it well. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was in the old village, so I was down there by there's an old church, 16th century church, which my parents are buried at, St. Nicholas Church. So
That's amazing. Yeah, I've biked there. Yeah, beautiful country.
well, thank you. I haven't been. I'm not from. I live in Tucson now, but that's where I'm from. That's where my heart is.
Yeah.
Jess, there are two good shows that I enjoy watching on BritBox, Inspector Morse and Lewis,
The best.
which are both based in Oxford.
Yeah.
You ever get any ideas from a show like that?
I love BritBox, by the way. I spend way too much time watching. This is not at all. Actually, it does answer your question. I spend a lot of time, shockingly, a lot of time watching This Farming Life. I don't know why. I find so much like comfort and like peace in watching the course of a year go by on these family farms. It's just fascinating. So yes, actually, I have been influenced by farm animals and work them into plot before. But yeah, sometimes I'll be watching a show and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to set something there. Oxford was because I had spent a little bit of time there and was like, okay, I need to set something here. But yeah, sometimes I will look at a place. I'm like, ugh, I have to go there. I have to figure this out.
I would say, first of all, Morse is the best Oxford has ever looked. I love it. And also, have you watched Endeavor? Yeah, that's also
I was
wonderful.
going to say Lewis Morse and Endeavor.
Endeavor's also great.
I know it. I
Yeah.
was really sad when Endeavor came.
Me too.
an
I
end,
know. It was
right.
the best.
You know, it's an interesting thing. Colin Dexter, I could not give away a Colin Dexter book until Morse became television. nobody was really all that interested. He wasn't actually that great a writer. He wasn't. He really wasn't.
Rest in peace.
Right. But, once I'm trying to remember, he won a prize for, it was the historical one. I can't recall the name of it, right? On the canal. Yeah. And then, but Morse came along and, magically, everybody, but Morse was really not a lovable character in many respects. And I always feel badly, that he died, on the college lawn or something of the sort.
Right.
And so did John Thaw.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it was a weird parallel.
Really strange.
But I love the guy that played Endeavor.
Oh God, I know. He was so human. He was like those big eyes. I loved him.
And also Sergeant Lewis. Yeah, that was great. You said you didn't watch Endeavor?
He said he did. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. So one could cycle through it all over again. Ruth Ware has written, sorry?
Which one? Oh, I don't think I've seen that one. People swear by Shakespeare and Hathaway. I've never seen that one. Really? Okay, okay. Do you work for BritBox?
Well, you can watch Acorn too. There's a lot
That's
of good
true,
stuff
that's
on
true.
Acorn. I'm addicted to Brokenwood, which is set in New Zealand. And the first time Rob and I went to New Zealand, it was like season 3 of Brokenwood, and all we were astonished that no one we met in New Zealand had even heard of it.
Oh, that's
I
so
know,
funny.
I'm serious. We went around saying, watch Brokenwood, and I mean, it has some really weird plots, but I love that whole.
What is the premise of? I don't know that one.
It's a police series set in a small town in New Zealand,
Okay.
and they bring in some Maori culture and other stuff, but you get kind of fond. I mean, it's like Cabot's Cove. Let's face it. There's no way that this small community would sustain this level of homicide. It's just not going to.
Have you ever heard the theory that on Murder, She Wrote Angela Lansbury was a serial killer? Because everywhere she goes, there's a new murder. She's like,
Do you know it's going to be Jamie Lee Curtis?
no, really?
And George Clooney.
No.
No, they're bringing it back with Jamie Lee Curtis and as the Angela Lansbury and George Clooney. And
I will watch.
by contrast,
Same.
Jamie Lee Curtis, the reason I know this is Patrick did a book event with Patricia Cornwell and Jamie Lee Curtis a couple weeks ago. She's also going to play Scarpetta in a...
Oh, that's
so
cool.
It's going to be weird to see her as Scarpetta.
And, then and what's her name?
Yeah, I mean,
Jessica
talk about Jessica
Fletcher?
Fletcher. Talk about two almost antithetical, kinds of sleuths. I think it'll be.
Ooh,
Oh,
that's
well,
a good
you
duo.
would know because you're the one who talked, right? So Nicole Kidman and Jamie Lee Curtis. Wow, that's a powerful duo. Excellent. When is it coming on? Did they tell you? I mean, I think it's just in production, isn't it? Or okay, Nicole Kidman and Jamie Lee Curtis. Wow. Okay, I love it. So if you could cast Ruby, who would you pick?
Okay, this is a very random one. I don't know if any of you have watched Babylon Berlin on. So the actress that plays Charlotte Ritter.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I know I'm going to butcher her name. It's either Lisa Fries or Lisa Liv Fries. I do backwards in my head every time, and so I don't trust myself unless I'm looking it up. But she is so incredible as an actress, and just watching her, she can be both tough and vulnerable at the same time, and that there's something about her. Like the first time I saw Babylon Berlin, I'm like, oh my gosh, because I was late to the game on that show. Everybody else had watched it, and then I finally got around to watching it. Like everything else, I am probably 10 years behind everybody in television. But so that would she would be my Ruby. Except she's a German actress, so I don't know if that would work. But in my head.
Listen, if Donna Leon's entire series set in Venice was done with German stars and
That's
German
right.
show, and also Martin Walker's series with, Bruno, chief of police, again, it's a German company, so they do a lot of television.
They really do.
Yeah, they really do, and do it well. So just live with it if it turns out to be very
I would be thrilled.
right. So how about you? Can you imagine
I mean,
casting?
I have the readers of the books think about it a lot, and I've never really thought about it. But now that we say it, the Endeavor guy, I think he would be a great Lennox.
Oh, that's an interesting.
Don't you
idea.
think?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. As he's matured.
kind of the right
Yeah.
age, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. It's interesting how we just so. I felt so sad when Anne Cleeve's character, Vera, was done. But the thing is, you can't plug anybody else into the role. So I think she aged out of it, and she
think
did
that's right.
really well. But when you have somebody who is so identified as a character, but then again, Basil Rathbone is now instead Benedict Cumberbatch. We're all kind of got used to
It's
that.
true.
And yeah. So maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else have a question? No? Come on, guys.
The Endeavour guy's name is Sean Evans.
That's
Sean
right.
Evans. Okay, I'm gonna write him an email.
And he was so young looking, like wet behind the ears when it
Yeah,
it
he's so
started.
boyish.
And then the policeman ended up as one of the couples in M.L. Longworth's series set in Aix in Provence. Those are wonderful books. There's like 6 or 7 of them. And he popped up, over in the front. So that was kind of weird,
It is weird when you spot someone who's so identified with one character in a new series, and you're like, "What are you doing?" You're
Well,
not-
I'm addicted to French crime shows, and they have a very small. It's almost like the Royal Shakespeare Company. They're like 11 actors. That's it.
every murderer,
Yeah,
every
and so
detective.
it's always like a sort of kaleidoscope when they come on. You think, okay, he was the bad guy there, but now he's the grandfather, and here he is the
Oh,
good
how
guy.
funny!
I know, but there's limited casting all the way around. So tell us about what's coming. It's always good to end up on the idea that there'll be a new book. I mean, we're here with this one, Devil in Oxford, but we're being greedy. So are you working on another book for Ruby?
Yeah, so I am working on. The ghost doesn't want me to answer. But yeah, so I finished a draft of something new. So hopefully I will have news, official title and everything coming in the not so distant future. Wonderful. But yeah.
Well, that's good news.
And I just finished a new Lennox, Midnight in the House of Commons.
Ooh, that's a great title.
Thank you. Yeah,
So there's going to be a murder there in the gallery?
that's exactly right.
right?
Yeah,
Oh.
you should write a mystery.
I have actually made the trip from Oxford to sit in the gallery. Our college let us do that.
Oh, how
And
cool!
it was very cool.
I've
to-
never gotten to do that,
You haven't.
But
And
I
you
did-
wrote
I-
about it.
but I wrote about it. But I did get to go to. They held Parliament in Oxford for 4 years in like the 1600s when Cromwell was around, and it's in. I think it might be in Worcester.
Oh, yeah, it's one of the oldest
Yeah.
colleges.
And the
it
only
had-
one with
it
a
had
lake.
a convenient lake where they
Yeah,
could
the only
like
one with a
drown
lake.
people. So,
That's
yeah,
right.
All very, very good. Right. Okay. Well, I want to thank you, virtual audience, for joining us tonight. And if you have no more questions, would you like to get your books